Welcome back to Greenfield Overlanding, where we're all about budget overlanding in our daily drivers.
Recently here in the Charlotte area, the weather's taken quite a turn for the cold side of things. Actually, one day we had 11 inches of snow, which I think is tied for 4th all time here in the Charlotte area. Thinking about that, I decided to make an investment and purchase a Hcalory diesel heater. For demonstration purposes, we've set up the tent here on the Canyon. We're in Steve's Greenfield cave, better known as his garage, and we're going to run some tests, see how the diesel heater sets up, what might be the best positioning, as well as maybe do some evaluation. It's about, I think, in the 40 degrees here today. Let's see how warm we can get it and keep it inside the tent.
And if this works well for Brian, I may consider purchasing one for the old Jeep.
So this is the Hcalory Toolbox heater. I bought this off of Amazon, so we'll put a link in the description in terms of the exact model. But fairly good deal. I think it was about $120, $130. Comes with a lot of stuff here, so I'll kind of walk through what the parts are and then we'll see how we can assemble this. What it comes with, of course, the unit itself. We can open this up. And inside is where the diesel fuel tank resides, as well as the actual heater itself. It does come with a remote. Now this particular unit basically just has an on-off button on the remote, as well as a plus or minus for setting the temperature higher or lower. Additionally, the unit has a more detailed control. This rests inside a little cubby here on the front, but this is where you have power and more configurable settings. So as I understand it, and we'll test this out, you can set more of a standard temperature, more like a thermostat you would use in your house. So it'll turn the heater up or down, on and off as it needs to maintain a temperature kind of steady within the tent. We'll try to see how that works out. Now the cable itself, just in the unit, is really only about maybe 2 feet, probably more like 6 inches to 9 inches when you extend it out of here. That's where another included piece here is this extension cable. What I intend to do when we're setting this up with the tent is the unit, of course, will be outside because I do enjoy living and I don't want to get ramped up with a whole bunch of diesel fume CO2 in my tent. Ask me again on a Sunday night sometimes if that's what I really feel. But anyway, I'll use this extension to run this controller inside the tent. I mentioned the fumes and the exhaust. So it comes with an exhaust pipe, connects here, off the front here in this case. So you can run that out, bend the hose different ways to direct that away from your vehicle. And then there's a muffler that also ties on this to hopefully keep the sound at a reasonable level so that you can actually sleep with the heat on in the tent. It does come with some 3-inch vent. Thank you, Steve. But as you can see, I don't know what this is useful for from a camping standpoint. Probably maybe if you're using this in a garage or some more kind of permanently deployed manner, this might be useful, but for the purposes of what we're trying to use it for, not going to get a whole lot out of this. So we made a trip to Lowe's and bought some 3-inch dryer venting duct. This is going to be 8 feet long, so that should give me enough room to run this off of the unit, put the unit far enough away from the vehicle so that I'm not getting a whole bunch of fumes inside, and still run that in there comfortably. This is 3-inch ducting. What I had originally purchased when I ordered this from Amazon was some dryer venting, which is, I guess, the standard's 4-inch. Somehow I didn't check well enough, and now I have some extra ducting for my home, so I guess I'll be doing an upgrade on my dryer at home. Off the end of the duct, you have the actual vent that you can run in here. We'll put this on the end, secure that down, and then direct the heat towards the sleeping area within the tent. Last but not least is it does require power. So it comes with 2 cables included. One would be for running this directly to a battery, so straight DC in. In my case, I'm going to be using my Anker SOLIX battery to run this. So it also includes a power brick, so we have the DC to AC conversion. Hopefully this is going to be long enough. That's the question as well, so I might end up with an extension cord at some point, but for our test today, I think this will do the trick. One thing I did notice in reading through some of the manual today is make sure you have enough battery to get you through the period you're using it, because there was a section of safety warnings, about 16 different items in there, and at least 4 of them talked about not disconnecting the power before actually having the unit cycle down on its own. Having a sufficient battery to run it for the duration that you're looking for is probably going to be important in that case. Let's get this thing together and hook it up at the tent. First thing I'm going to hook up is the exhaust here on the front. Remove the plastic cap. And then they come with several of these hose clamps that we'll use to tighten down. So run that over there first and pick the correct end. So this just slides over there. I will take the screwdriver, which I just placed over here, and we'll just clamp that down. So you might want to do yourself a favor that I didn't and do some of that tightening in advance, but ultimately we still get there. The next part is we're going to connect our muffler to the exhaust and see which way that's meant to line up. Apparently neither way. Okay, so it's just got to work its way into the metal pipe here. So, easy. This gives you the ability to kind of route this in a way that's going to keep the exhaust directed away from your vehicle. I have seen people that actually run an extra segment of the steel flexible piping off of there. Might be something I try just as we kind of test this out and see, you know, how much of the fumes are detected in the area. But for right now, let's just start with what's provided. I'll move it over closer to the truck and then we can start running in some of the ducting. So the next piece we're going to set up is the duct to run the heat out of the unit into the tent. So I'm going to connect this up here at the hot air vent side. Very much similar if you've ever hooked up your dryer exhaust, same thing, except this is 3-inch and not 4-inch. I can't stress that enough, so you don't have to make an extra trip to Lowe's unnecessarily. The other end of this then is our vent, so I'm not sure how we're going to want this positioned long term, but we'll stick it in here initially, clamp her down. So I would say as I'm struggling through this a little bit, the hose they give you is a bit more rigid, but it's just not long enough to be useful in this scenario. So it would probably slide over there quite a bit easier, but we'll make it work. One time. Cool. So I think that'll hold. So my plan is for right now, and this kind of works out. Steve, maybe if you want to zoom in here a little bit, see if you can see. One of the drawbacks of this tent in most situations is there is this gap that I've run into, but it does provide me a pretty good space to actually run this duct inside. So I'm going to try to leverage that and see how it works out.
Go.
So I think there's a bit more slack to work with. Right now I just have it kind of jammed in here. I'm using my cargo bar to hold it in place. But now with the vent in place, I can start working on getting the electric run to the unit. Next we're going to hook up power. It's my first kind of major bump in the road in terms of how I would intend to set this up. My intention, of course, is to have the battery placed inside. But if I look at this AC to DC power block, you only have maybe 18 inches from where this needs to connect on the unit down here, which is a pretty solid connection, other than that, to actually running it to the battery bank, the power bank. So honestly, I can run an extension cord from this end into the truck, but I'm a little worried about using a power bank like this. Probably not waterproof. In fact, it's all vented on the side, so it's 100% not waterproof. So I'll have to think about how we can improve on this. Hcalory, if you have any channels for getting some feedback, we'll let you know what we're finding here, but I would love to hear how they intend you to use this block in more of a camping outdoors type scenario. So I got the Anker SOLIX powered up. Let's turn on the strip. Oh yeah, I am seeing now power on the unit itself. I'll get in here, see if we can see that. I'll go ahead and power that off, and next thing I want to do is use that extension cable to see if I can get this into the truck and how the thermostat feature would work, as well as we'll put some fuel in the thing so we can actually heat. Next up, let's try the extension cord with the thermostat control box. First part of this is we'll open the unit back up, move this a little bit away so I can pull this all the way out. There is a clip here. Push down and pull out the connector. The extension, we'll jack that in through here and come back around to the outside, and we'll fish through the thermostat. Let's see how far we can get from where we're at. So we can get this just inside from here. Let's move the heater just a little bit closer. Connect this back up, and I'll feed this through the same hole. Somewhat usable. Probably if you put it maybe up in the, I might be able to reach the pocket on the inside of the tent, or even just use some Velcro perhaps. Maybe stick it up out of the way. That might work out. Just want to make sure it's not too close to where the heat's ducting in, because that'll give me a false reading. But honestly, for the amount of space that we're talking about here, it's probably not a big difference from being close to this to being over there. Assuming the tent actually can hold in heat, should work out fine.
Drunken sailor. I wouldn't fill it too much if you're just doing a test run.
Yeah. This unit operates in a few different modes. There's a manual mode where you're essentially controlling the gearing on the diesel heater. So from the manual, it tells me it goes from 1 to 10 in that mode. And then there's also more of an automatic mode where you're trying to set more of a consistent temperature, and the unit should adjust up and down to help kind of maintain that steady temp. So to try it out, let's start first simple. Let's just turn it on and see if we can get some heat blowing in here. So I'll start, you push the power button for 2 seconds. It's a little cooler outside today, more like in the mid 40s, but I think the tent being out here in the sun for a while probably has added a little bit of a heating dome effect inside. In the manual mode, right now I'm on H5. I'll ramp that up to 8. And we'll see, once this unit gets warmed up, what the hot air feels like coming out of there. All right, so after some initial wait and some reworking of a few things, we have heat running in the tent. A few things to call out is, one, make sure you put enough fuel into the unit. I thought since I'm just gonna run it for a short period of time, I'll just put a little bit in, but
I wouldn't fill it too much if you're just doing a test run.
honestly, it looks like if you don't have at least maybe a quarter tank in there, it's not going to have enough to get the fuel line primed, which is part two. Once you have that in there, you can watch and we'll show you, I'll cut to some B-roll on this, but you can see the fuel line starts out, of course, full of air. There's not been any fuel in it, but as it starts pumping, you'll see that line starts to fill up, and that's when the actual heat kicks on. You'll notice a difference. Initially, we were thinking, wow, this is the quietest heater ever. Well, that was just the fan. Now that we're actually getting some heat in here, it's not noisy, but you can actually tell that there's something burning and flaming, creating heat. I'm feeling some pretty good heat coming out of this vent, so I'm pretty happy with what I think I'm going to be able to do from a winter camping standpoint. But for a next step, I've had this on manual. I'm going to switch it over to auto mode. So to do that, as I understand it, I should push on this gear button here for 2 seconds. Yeah, and now it shows me that it's currently 61 degrees. The outside temperature is probably somewhere in the mid 40s, so it's already started heating up already. But I'm gonna set that temperature, let's bump that up to 70. With the temperature set to 70, we're gonna zip the tent up, let it run for a while and see how we do in terms of getting it to that desired ambient air temperature. Well, hello there. The verdict is, it heats. It's quite warm in here. I've been running it for, gosh, about 5 minutes or so in the what's called the constant temperature mode. Now I had some mistakes in how I set that up. So when you turn on constant temperature mode, there's also an auto on-off that you need to use to accompany that. But I can say, having it on consistently for that time frame, using my other sensor here in the unit, I was up to about 80 degrees in that time frame. So definitely pushes out some heat. So I think I'd be quite comfortable in this no matter, what temperatures I'm usually going to experience here in the Carolinas. One thing I'm concerned about, I think like most people that have these, is since you are running a diesel motor, am I generating carbon monoxide that's potentially getting into my sleeping area so that I go to a nice gentle sleep and drift away forever? Not my goal. I invested in this. I think this was in that $20 range on Amazon. We'll put a link in the description, of course. But this shows 3 different settings. One is the carbon monoxide. I checked all over inside here after running this for several minutes. It's still at 0 parts per million, so that's awesome. It has a temperature which measures what's the ambient temperature in the tent itself. The last part that's kind of interesting is the humidity sensor. One thing that people camping, especially in colder temperatures, get concerned about is you're sleeping in that enclosed environment with your breath and such generating a lot of humidity. The relative humidity outside of the tent here today is somewhere in the 38 to 40% range. Inside the tent, after running this heater for a while, we're more in like the teens rather, which is more what I would expect. You're running dry heat pumping in here. Really pretty happy with it. There's some things we need to figure out still though, and we'll talk about those in just a minute. So wrapping up, my thoughts on the heater so far. From a heating perspective, the thing is awesome, man. There's no way I'm gonna be cold inside that tent if I keep it running. The only problem I could have, and things I don't know yet, is how far I can go on a tank of fuel. But assuming that gets through a whole night, this thing is really gonna keep it perfectly toasty inside the tent. I imagine in an even more enclosed space, you probably barely need to run the thing. Other things I like about it is looking at it during steady state. On the particular outlet that I had it plugged into, it was showing basically effectively 0 watts of draw. Being able to power this along with perhaps a fridge and a few other things that I'm charging up overnight, not really a concern. On the negative side, still things I'm gonna have to work out is that power brick situation. because there's really not enough length from where it jacks into the unit to get that brick into a covered area. Also trying to figure out just keeping the unit outside, you know, how I can cover up the top of that and yet keep it far enough away from the vehicles. Have some ideas there. I think you'll see that probably more in person once we get it out on the trail in the very near future.
And I think I'm going to be pretty jealous freezing my butt off in my Jeep Wrangler while Brian is in comfy cozy land in his truck next door. So I'm going to be looking for a sale, grabbing one of these off Amazon. We'll put the link in the description. My challenge is going to be, I don't have the hole in the tent because I'm cozy up inside the Jeep, all the windows closed if it's freezing out. So I'm going to have to build a way to pump this in through the window. And I have some ideas on that, so we'll record that when we do it. But we're looking forward to, you know, getting another one and getting it hooked up.
Yeah, so hopefully you like this type of content. If you do, please do smash that like button. We're also, as a new channel, looking for more subscribers. Do some more things. If you have comments, you know, if you've been using one of these heaters out here and you see some of the challenges I'm running into, I'd love to hear how other people have tackled those things. You know, what are some other options to make this work more efficiently out there once we're on the trails and needing to camp for the night.
Steve and Brian signing out from Greenfield Overlanding. We'll see you next time.
Take care.
Here, we can do a couple of things. We're gonna, since this video. That'll be the one.
That's the one.